warming you up all the time. Hello, it was the best warm-up session. Thank you very much for waiting for me. It took me a long time to get here. You were here on time. Thank you very much. So immediately I'll start with the business because I don't have much time, obviously. I really wanted to share my experience with you. I think I've encountered this problem as my team started growing with the manageability problem. When the team normally looks at me and awaits a kind of a magic solution from me, and they follow this solution for years without changing their tactics. We know that the company is obviously self-sufficient. We wanted to change that tactics inside the team. Some of the slides will be skipped by me because obviously we have frameworks, we have standards, and people use them. And very often, very simple implementation of standards unfortunately do not create the protection. And what's being protected? It's a big standalone question to be discussed. Security strategy. By the way, the slides are in English. And I actually had that those slides prepared for another event which was staged a couple of weeks ago. So CISO sometimes cannot be involved enough and does not understand whether the focus is defined properly, whether there is a client, why they do that. So there are plenty of processes that are historically inherited, and sometimes we do not understand why we stick to them, just because of the custom, just because of the tradition, and just because other people do that.
Should we protect a computer club? I don't know. A computer center would probably require a once-a-day chip process without needing much security, but oftentimes teams do not think like that. Moreover, if we're talking about a more complicated infrastructure, let's say you have 200 or 300 information security processes on site, and do they solve the security problem? What is the problem? Integrating as many processes as possible and then gradually improving them, that looks strange. And the very task of identifying the security problem led to this particular approach. So what do we mean by the product approach? Actually, I would have been happy if 5 years ago someone had tried to tell me what it was and deep dove into that. And that's why I want to share it with you, because no one ever did that for me. So I hope it will be useful for you. This is not an ideology. It's a product-oriented, it's a product-focused approach used by businesses everywhere, but the IT security guys rarely do that. So it's a transformation through improving the processes to protect against threats. And overall, that helps the teams to change the tactics for achieving the goals. In other words, they get a goal and they change the tactic as needed to align themselves with the strategic target. And that changes the mentality of the teams. They start focusing on the end product and they want to shape their contribution to the overall goal in 3 to 5 years. Globally, there are 3 elements to the product approach, and they include client, business, and data. As for the client, there is always a client, even if, let's take a strange process as an example. Let's say preventing leaks and punishing staff for leaks. There is a client, there is an employee who gets punished, and he is the client of this process. If you do not identify the client, then oftentimes the leak protection, leak control processes look like you want to screw the entire organization. You try to identify the villain rather than control the leaks. Data leaks, so you're not focusing on the root cause. and that complicates things. Therefore, there is always a client, there is a customer journey, so to speak. And if you isolate the data loop, for instance, 3 years back, we tried to identify the customer journey. We took an ordinary employee and we said, let's say you are a business analyst. What's your roadmap? And we received so many insights that drove us to realize that this shitty product was not good to be used. So the customer security helped us roll out the right tools, and starting from the very point when the business analyst knows how to get to the customer journey, to this data loop, by solving simple tasks and by identifying the customer journey, we made the product useful. Sometimes we had to explain things to people, we had to get some feedback. This is a simple thing. For some reason, no one uses it. Just put a junior staff on identifying the customer journey, and you'll get so many business insights, you'll be surprised. As for the business, that's setting the targets. I can deep dive into every element for a long time, but unfortunately, I'm really short of time. Well, another cool thing is to be in line with business, because business focuses on goals and targets, and they know what they are. And when you really understand why you do things, and if you're being frank about that, for instance, you do things so that data is not stolen, that the money is not stolen. For business, it becomes easier to finance, and data is a must. Nothing works without data. We need to have measurable outcomes, and the data-driven approach is something that is one of the pillars of the product-focused approach. I already covered the customer side, the client side. There is every tool in place. The way the customer journey looks is as follows. So there are NPSs. You can use A/B tests, and so all the tools are available. All you need to do is use them. For some reason, oftentimes it doesn't happen. Net Promoter Score is a very useful tool, and we learned a lot about the IT security department by running the NPS tool. You'll get lots of interesting insights too. As for the business, I already cited, well, I'm citing a couple of examples here. There is the endpoint security, one of our products, and the endpoint security is to ensure 100% protection. For instance, one of the KPIs is the percentage of installing antiviral software. Why would you need it in the first place? Well, I have a team of about 70,000 guys who don't need antiviral software. And if you try to install a program like that for 70,000 antivirus employees, you would have to commit suicide, because that would cost so much money. You could just provide an isolated sandbox for making phone calls and getting your email. So endpoint security does not mean that you have to roll out the antiviral programs on all the PCs. You need to protect some type of infrastructure and get some type of threats. Data leakage prevention is another important thing. So if your goal is not to screw the entire bank and to prove to everyone that he or she is wrong, but rather make sure that the tool is convenient, then it reduces the data leakage risks way more than sending IT security guys to every single department so that they put a stick to everyone. So this is a good way to roll out good tools and reduce the risks of data leakage by eliminating data, by deleting data, for instance. Deleting data wherever you don't need it is a good way to ensure data leakage prevention. And if you come to a guy and say, can you not send this data, just send an indicator rather than the entire personal data, such as physical address, medical data, email, and so on and so forth. And this guy would tell you, yes, I can. And this is a great example. The Data Guard was a software that we deployed to cover all the employees. Data Guard is our in-house bug bounty. And if you send a message about bad data processing practices, you can get points or T points in our case, Tinkoff points. And I bought a bike machine. You can buy an iPhone or a Mac PC. In other words, the T-score is a successful bug bounty. People get points for whistleblowing on bad data processes, and it's way better than a DLP that will identify every single bad practice employee whom you would then punish. So this is a different tactics of reaching a goal. And by the way, in our team, we are already rolled out, and we just recently reviewed this process. 30% of every single review is wasted on discussing the goals of products. Why would you need that in the first place? It's a very complex issue. Why would endpoint security be deployed on the CEO PCs, on the CEO's PC? The goals define the tactics employed by the team. This is the data-driven approach. This is just a piece of the real vulnerability manager. This is the goal tree split into different boxes. Every single box is measurable. You can calculate the KPIs for each and every product, and then plan how you're gonna reach the goal set. So to sum up, frameworks don't have the goal-based vision and the why. As for the product approach, primarily it boils down to going outside of the product box and changing the mindset towards reaching the product-focused goals. And as for managing all of that, initially, we started rolling out this approach from this side. That was about a year or 18 months back. And then we developed the product approach. But I started from the end of this story because it's more logical. And just like everyone else in this room, we used the mirror matrix and tried to identify the attack vectors, all the initial accesses, and so on and so forth. And we drew all the vectors. It took us a very long time. As you can see, the execution persistence privilege escalation vectors, we populated the vectors for a very long time, and this is what we came up with. And this is just part of the diagram. It did not work. We started migrating that into Excel. There were lots of iterations. And by the way, the most difficult thing was to simplify this diagram. And what we came up with is something that we named the attack funnel. We took all the initial accesses from the mirror matrix and we focused on the middle part only, because the middle part improves the information security. These are some assumptions that we had to deal with. And the very last step is about understanding product-specific damage. For instance, we have specific programs, anti-theft products. Of course, the Security Operations Center is for that purpose. But there are also specific pieces of software, for instance, a box that identifies deviations in the payment flows. It's a black box of sorts. That's why it's at the very end of the chain, and it protects the money flows. This is the attack vector, for instance, the phishing, mail security, and in the middle, what you have is the SOC, infrastructure security, network security, internal network security, and the impact-specific product is the very last step. This is well, for instance, if we protect our core platforms that host much of the business, we'll probably ensure better protection against total business shutdown, because this platform is spread across 5 different data centers and it's difficult to shut it down. There are specific mechanics against specific threats. So these are the vectors that we identified. Of course, there are more of them. The perimeter vulnerability is countered by the perimeter security, and we understand what the consequences might be. Ultimately, what we came up with is this simplified diagram, and it is aimed at helping us discuss the tactics and the strategy of the cybersecurity based not on the immediate concern. For instance, some add-ons, add-on hardware might be used as an attack vector. So we need a roadmap to be able to discuss things with our team to prioritize the products and their development. The attackability is one of the boxes that you can see here. This is a term coined by threat intelligence, and attackability is about identifying the number of companies that use TI reports to acquire data. I mean, the attack vectors used and the most critical attack vectors for us as a company. Given the fact that every box is measurable and we calculated the variables, we can calculate the ultimate impact. In other words, you multiply the probability of every vulnerability, and ultimately you calculate the total impact. By the way, this is what the next slide is all about. Attackability based on the product vulnerability, and the main difference is that step one is about identifying the weakest, the most vulnerable product. For instance, you don't care whether you will be attacked through the perimeter, through the email, or through the hardware. And the next one is the probability of the attacker penetrating the perimeter, and the last one is ATM security. That's about the money flows, anti-fraud, internal anti-fraud, encryption, and so on and so forth. So when we multiply the probabilities, we calculate the total impact, and based on that, we can see where we are, and based on that, we can select the right strategy. This is the blank slide, as you can see. By the way, it happened by chance. There were 4 boxes there. Just imagine that there are 4 boxes for before and after in terms of the desirable impact. By improving the product KPIs, we just improve the impact. So it's all about assumptions. This is just a way, an approach to IT security. It's not an equation. It's not a formula, despite the fact that we use a data-driven approach. So we identified several tactics for choosing priorities. For instance, attackability is high and the product is bad. So that means that we need to focus on that. Or the most vulnerable, the weakest product, and the simplest vector of attack. That requires some brain work to identify the most vulnerable products. Another thing that we started thinking about is the most effective product in terms of its contribution to the overall network security. For instance, network security is based on several stages, and you can identify the most valuable priorities. To conclude, the entire product approach, offers the following upside. You can increase the effectiveness of the teams. You can start thinking about the most important things and focus on the most important things while ignoring the least important things. For instance, we keep on focusing on things which have not been attacked for years on end. but we are just unwilling to give it up. If you identify the priorities, then you will be able to focus on developing them. The customer journey roadmap is really important, and I really recommend, I insist that you should identify your customer. No one wants to focus on the customer's needs, and they have lots of pain points. So it's important to see the customer and to identify their needs. The downside is that it does not mean that you can give up the risk evaluation. You still need a zero trust strategy, for instance, that would combine the network security, access management, access control, endpoint security, and so on and so forth. In other words, the top view strategy is still important. You cannot just give it up and say, this is a great product approach that we're going to use from now on, and we'll give up everything else. No, it's an addition. It's an additional tool for the Chief Information Security Officer. That brings me to the end of my presentation.